Alrighty. So verse 23 says this. And at the same time there arose no small stir about the way, for a certain man named Demetrius, a silversmith, which made silver shrines for Diana, brought no small gain unto the craftsmen, whom he called together with workmen of like occupation, and said, Sirs, ye know that by this craft we have our will. Moreover, ye see and hear that not alone at Ephesus, but almost throughout all Asia, this Paul has persuaded and turned away much people, saying that they be no gods, which are made with hands. So that not only our craft is in danger to be set at naught, but also that the temples of the great goddess Diana should be despised, and her magnificence should be destroyed, whom all Asia and the world worship. So we're going to stop right there. We'll probably get past that. So let's start with a quick overview. Where is Paul at now? What city is Paul in now?
Macedonia.
He's at Ephesus. Ephesus is in what country? This is part of the Roman Empire. Rome is actually in Italy. But Ephesus is in what country? He said, I have shown you know these gods. I've shown you this is the statue to the unknown God. He was in Athens then, and Athens is in where? Greece. So Ephesus is in Greece. Macedonia is also in Greece. It's all like, if you have your map, it's all on the map. But it's all, that's in Greece, in that area. So, Paul has... last week we talked about Paul and some people. Who were those people? Who remembers their names? 7 of them. 7 sons.
Sons of Sceva.
The sons of Sceva. Can someone quickly give us a brief overview of who the sons of Sceva were? If you remember, go ahead and tell us about it. If not, I'll ask somebody else.
They went in there and tried to exorcise the demon.
Yeah.
They said, Jesus I know, Paul I know, but I don't know y'all.
I don't know y'all. And what did they do? What did the demons do?
Jumped on them, beat them
Beat 'em
up, got them on.
Beat them up real bad, right? So that was last week. Now we are, and Paul is just continuing on his mission to share the gospel. What is the gospel which Paul will always preach, and he will never sway from it? What is that gospel?
Jesus Christ. Dead.
Crucified.
Jesus Christ, crucifixion, resurrection.
Yes. All of that is the gospel Paul is preaching, right? He's never going to deviate from that gospel. So we are verse 23. And at the same time, there arose no small stir about that way. Someone read that for me in a non-King James version. Verse 23.
Verse 23?
Yes, in a non-King James version.
I got the ESV.
That's good. That's a good book.
And then you said verse 23.
Verse 23.
It say, about the time there arose no little disturbance concerning the way, for a man named Demetrius, a silversmith, who made silver shrines of Artemis, brought no little business to the craftsmen.
That's good. Stop right there. So I want to stop right there. I want to stop at verse number 23. It says, the same time there was no small stir about the way. What is the way? Christianity. How do we know that? Because we have read that they were known as people of what? They are known as people of the way. And how did we get to that? To them being the people of the way. Who did Jesus say that he was?
I am the way.
I am the way, the truth, and the life. So again, we have encountered this narrative where there are haters who do not want to see the gospel advance. We continue to see this narrative throughout the book of Acts, throughout Paul making his many journeys, because when he gets to a place, they stir up the crowd. You remember Jason, what did Jason have to do? You remember Sister Kim? You remember what Jason had to do? Because you kept talking about it. You remember? Okay, I will help you out.
Yeah, help me out.
He had to pay.
He had to keep paying them Jews.
Yeah, he had to pay because they were stirring up the crowd, but he had to pay the penalty, right?
Yes.
Literally, he had to pay the. But this is the narrative that continues to happen. And a certain man named Demetrius. Now we know we are in Greece because Demetrius is a good Greek name, right? As a matter of fact, in the Greek Orthodox Church, they have the Bishop of Demetri, which is the big bishop within their church. Demetrius is a good Greek name, so we're in Greece. What is his job? What is Demetrius' job? What does a silversmith do?
Makes things, silver things.
They create silver things.
Trinkets and bracelets and jewelry.
And jewelry and trinkets
And little gods.
and household gods, right? So this is what Demetrius does. Demetrius is a Greek, and we already know that Paul is in Greece, and Paul already talked to them about, you all know all these gods, but here is a temple, and you recognize that there's an unknown God that you may not know. And he says, I've come to tell you about who he is. He is Jesus the Christ. And he talks about God as the creator, right? So Demetrius is a silversmith. He makes his money mining and smithing silver. Shrines, mine says Diana, yours says Artemis, doesn't it?
Yep.
Mine says Diana.
Diana, yours says what?
Diana.
Diana, anybody else's? Diana. Artemis. Diana is the Romanized version of Artemis. So that's why some says Diana, some says Artemis is the Greek word, right? Artemis is the Greek god. It's a Greek, the Greek god of, I think it was the countryside, nature, and she is a idol, right? So Artemis is an idol. Artemis, Diana, she's an idol. But Demetrius makes his money doing what? Of the goddess Artemis. What could they do with a trinket of Artemis in their home?
Pray to it.
Possibly pray to it, worship. Any other ideas?
The little sacrifices.
Sacrifices, right. And what is the very first commandment of the Ten Commandments?
Thou shalt not the God before me.
Number 2.
No graven images.
So firstly, you can't have no other God before me. Secondly, you cannot make any graven image. This is exactly who Artemis is to them, right? Graven image. She is a god that they are worshiping. They are giving their attention, and she becomes a shrine to them. And why would Demetrius have such an issue with Paul preaching Jesus?
He can't make no money.
Money.
He can't make no money.
Where have we encountered this before? Where did we encounter this before? The unnamed girl who, what was she doing? She was telling fortunes. And what does Paul do?
Cast the demon out.
He casts out the demon. And what does her owner now say? It was getting rid of the livelihood. It's the same narrative of this one. They're turning the world what? Upside down. These people of the way. And everywhere they go, they're turning this world upside down. We're going to hear the same thing throughout the text. So, they have that in the shrine, verse number 24. Whom he now calls together with the workmen of like occupation, and said, Sirs, we know that by the crafts we have our will. Somebody read verse 25 to 26 in a different translation for me.
These he gathered together with the workmen in similar trades and said, Men, you know that from this business we have our wealth. And you see and hear that not only in Ephesus, but in almost all of Asia, this Paul has persuaded and turned away a great many people, saying that gods made with hands are not gods.
Okay, stop there. So Demetrius begins to try to what?
Persuade people.
Unionize. He's like, listen, we got to come together. Because what is relying upon this? If we don't come together and stop this, what's going to happen?
You're going to be poor, bro.
We're not going to have, one, we're going to be poor. Two, we're not going to have a livelihood. 3, how we gonna take care of our children, right? So he has real practical issues with Jesus, with this man preaching Jesus. And not only, he wouldn't have an issue if he preached Jesus and it didn't affect him, but he's preaching Jesus and saying that the very thing in which the product that he is selling is what? He's saying that it is not of God. He's turning people, he's changing people's mind, turning people away, and he's holding fast to a big T. What's the big T? He's holding fast. Who?
Tradition.
Tradition, right? Why? Because these are our traditions. This is how we do things. And this is the nature of the world in which we live in. And he could get people to co-sign with him because they're like, you're right. This is the world we live in. We don't want to challenge it much because we're doing okay. You can make a living. As a silversmith, and you can make a living selling these guys. Whether you believe it or not, you can make a living. And when you are operating from a mindset of money, we know money answers all things. That's the sacred text. But the love of money is the root of all evil, right? So he is more concerned about their way of life. He's more concerned about their culture. He's more concerned about the world in maintaining the world in which it is versus the world in which it could be, right? Why is that a problem? Why is that a problem? Is that a problem? Let's start there.
It's not a problem for Christians. It is for those. So.
Okay. Hold on to that. I'm going to talk more about that in a few seconds. Is it a problem for him to want to maintain his world like this? Yes or no?
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
Why?
Because he's going against the law. Well, the 10 Commandments.
I don't believe it in no how.
But it's still you're gonna
He wouldn't be a believer of the Ten Commandments.
He's gonna commit himself to damnation.
Okay. Anybody else? Anybody else think it's a problem?
His reputation.
His reputation? How so?
For depending on the truth.
Yeah, but is it a problem for him to think like that?
No.
Okay, I hear a no. Let me get to that now. Why do you think it's not a problem?
Well, I'm thinking, I'm not. I mean, that's what God gave us to choice. We never gonna think alike.
Okay, so you like he has this autonomy.
Yeah.
He got autonomy. Okay. These are, go ahead, Brother Allen.
I'm trying to understand the question. Are you saying is there something wrong with it objectively or subjectively?
Is there something wrong with it at all? Like, well, subjectively, as a Christian, I would say there's something wrong.
Okay.
So you can either take objective or subjective. But for me, well, I'm not gonna say for me. But what is your position?
I mean, if we organize it like that, subjectively, yes, but objectively, no.
Because of what Sister Kim just said. Everyone has their own. As a Christian, is it a problem?
Yes,
Yeah.
for sure.
Why?
Because there's only one God. We don't worship other gods.
Okay, you went with the
little
monotheistic
G's.
argument. Okay. One God, you serve one God.
And that's the big G, not the little d.
That's a big G, not a little G. Okay. Sister.
I think the answer could be yes or no based upon perspective,
Mm-hmm.
because the issue is, I don't feel like that there's an issue universally, but the issue is that more people are coming to believe in Jesus,
Mm-hmm.
which is affecting their bottom line, right? They wouldn't care about followers of the way
Mm-hmm.
if it was you could follow Jesus and Artemis,
Mm-hmm.
and you could still buy these shrines, because that's not affecting our bottom line. So the presence of that thought, of that belief system, isn't necessarily an issue, because the Christians are not being forced to purchase the shrines or to continue to worshiping Diana. But the presence of the Christians is affecting the bottom line of these other people. Whether they believe or not, it's affecting the bottom line.
So that's the issue. The bottom line.
Right.
The money. So
Right.
it all goes back to
And power. Because also in the next script, in the next verse, it just uses this word. And here's the danger, not only that this trade of ours may come into disrepute. Right? So right now it seems like these silversmiths, people sort of respect them in a way. But if they lose this income and this position, they also will lose the power and the respect that they have as their position. So money and power both.
Well, money and power often go together.
Yeah.
And so let me give you mine. I think it is an issue when you look at it from a Christian perspective, because we are supposed to only serve one God, and His name is Jesus the Christ, right? And in serving, we're supposed to serve the Lord our God. We're supposed to follow Jesus the Christ. And in doing that, being a Christian should be an antithesis to the world, right? And what they're saying as the silversmiths is that these people's way of thinking, these people's way of living, these people's way of approaching the world literally tells us that we are wrong and that we need to turn away from this idol worship. But this is how we make our money. So that's their issue. The issue is the bottom line. Is the bottom line of we cannot make money, and it endangers our profession, right? And if we cannot make money, that means the economy is not going to grow. If we cannot make money, that means that we cannot pay our bills. If we cannot make money, that means we cannot buy products, right? It becomes a bigger issue around making money. But then, verse 27 talks about, well, let's go back. Moreover, ye see and hear that no one alone at Ephesus, but almost throughout all of Asia. It's not just here in Greece. They're carrying this gospel everywhere.
Mm-hmm.
And word continues to get back to wherever they go that they are turning this world upside down. Sister Thomas.
But isn't that the design of the gospel?
That is the design of the
That
gospel.
people should be uncomfortable without you picking on them or saying anything. If we're doing what Jesus said, you may be uncomfortable, but then your issue really is with God and not you.
Yes, I agree. The issue, being a Christian, like I said earlier, your Christianity should offend the world. Not because you're being offensive and using and weaponizing your Christianity. Your Christianity should offend the world because you're doing radical things out of love to transform this world with the gospel, right? So if you began to feed the hungry on Kins, we'll use this as a prime example. You're feeding the hungry on Kinsman. No one cares if you feed the hungry on Kinsman. But when you feed the hungry on Kinsman and they begin to be transformed, and all of these various houses around here that house people with mental illnesses began to have to shut down because you're feeding people on Kinsman, you're giving them hope, you're sharing the gospel, you're sharing radical love, and they're no longer having manifested issues of mental health, and they are no longer needing to be dependent upon the government. They are no longer in need to beg at your store. They are no longer working in menial jobs, but now they have hope and they are moving beyond their current circumstance to something greater because you simply preach the gospel and were radical in your love. Then they will say to you, you got to stop doing what you do. Because you're being radical in love. You're being radical in sharing the gospel. You're being radical in your inclusivity, right? All of that, right? That is why the gospel is offensive. That is why the people are like, yeah. That's why the people in this text are like, listen, we heard about how you have turned the world upside down in Jerusalem. We heard about it in Macedonia. We heard about it in Lystra. We heard about, all these places you all have been. And it's so radical, it's going to shut our entire industry down. Everywhere they went. It wasn't just there, it's in Asia. This Paul hath persuaded and turned away much people, saying that they be no gods which are made with hands. Who did they pinpoint as the sole person of doing this?
Paul.
What has Paul done?
To preach the gospel.
Sister Kim, what did Ananias tell Paul? What did God tell Ananias? I think it was Ananias about Paul in Romans chapter 10. He had to do what? You used to say it all the time.
He had to
Suffer.
suffer first.
He had to suffer many things for this gospel. And Paul continues to share the gospel. Listen, even when you're in Iconium and they beat you and kick you out the city, and what does Paul do? What does Paul do? He gets beat, thrown out the city. He goes back and preaches the same gospel. And not only is he preaching the gospel, but he's now telling them that the gods in which you're serving are idols. So now here's Demetrius, the good Greek person. So that not only this our craft is in danger to be sought at naught, but also that the temples of the great goddess Diana should be despised and her magnificence should be destroyed, whom all Asia and the world worship. Somebody read verse number 27 in a different translation.
And there is that.
Go ahead.
And there is danger not only that this trade of ours may come into disrepute, but also that the temple of the great goddess Artemis may be counted as nothing, and that she may even be disposed from her magnificence, she whom all Asia and the world worship.
How does Demetrius try to get them invested in trying to stop the spreading of the gospel? So what does Demetrius try to do to hook them, to try to make them come along his side to make us stop sharing the gospel?
It sounds like
Trade.
a guilt trip.
It sounds like who?
A guilt trip.
A guilt trip. Okay. Yeah. What else? He appeals to their ego. This thing which it's a noble profession to be a silversmith, right? Right? This is an honest day's work. You can make good money. This is a good job. And the very nature of our job is in danger. So he appeals to them on a very personal level, right? The devil is so sneaky and the devil is so conniving. The devil will try to appeal to the very nature of the thing that appeals to you. The devil knows exactly what appeals to each and every one of us, right? He's not going to come to me with apples and carrots.
Stop playing.
He's going to come to me with limeade, simply limeade. I love it. If he knows that your appetite is towards your ego being stroked, he knows how to do it in such a way that makes it seem appealing. That's exactly how Demetrius is trying to deal with them. He's trying to deal with them and tell them, appeal to their egos, this profession that we have worked hard to build it. And it was a good thing to be a silversmith. Now understand, you can make good money. You can make good money as a silversmith today. But it was a good trade. It was a good trade in their world. He appeals to that. But if that don't get him, what else does he appeal to?
The beauty of Artemis.
The beauty of Artemis. What else?
They'll be robbed of her. She'll be robbed of her prestige.
Listen, if you're not gonna do it for the sake of your job, do it for the sake of this God that has been our God, the God of our ancestors, who we worship because she is the God of the countryside. She is the God of birds. She is our God, and she is beautiful. And it's not just her. What else? It's not just her. Where do they worship her at?
The temple.
It's not just her, it's the temple. Think about all of this. He appeals to them from a very personal perspective, then he appeals to them from their religious perspective, right? Because if you cannot, maybe you're not a silversmith, but you have been to the temple, and you know how important that is to our culture, right? And he's like, so think about that. And what does verse number 28 say? Somebody reading a different translation.
When they heard this, they were enraged and were crying out, "Great is Artemis of the Ephesians."
Go to the next one.
So the city was filled with confusion, and they rushed together into the theater, dragging with them Gaius of Aristarchus, Macedonians who were Paul's companions in travel.
Okay, let's deal with that. So, do they take the bait?
Yes, immediately.
Why do you think they take the bait? Why do y'all think they take the bait?
Because they didn't want to lose their status
Okay.
with them, and as far as making the money, and they probably thought it over and figured they can probably make more money if they continue to do things the way that they have been doing it.
Okay. Why do you, that's a good point. Why do you think they take this bait so quickly?
I think part of it is that, one, a spirit of confusion is a part of what happened.
Mm-hmm.
And they also, it's a mix up of, I think, really understanding what's taking place. So he appeals to their emotionalism and riles them up about this, as if Paul and the other disciples were coming in to physically destroy the Artemis temple, which is not what they were doing. But he uses the emotionality of it to rile up the crowd. And it's sort of like a mob mentality. We see that happen now. One person, sort of a small group, starts something, and before you know it, everyone's jumping in, and then nobody knows why. Everybody's fighting each other. It's just what's happening.
Yes.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
Just really piggybacking on what she said, he just created a great narrative. You know what I mean? And he should work for like CNN or Fox, because he would be amazing. You know what I mean? Because that's what the same thing they do, and the same thing they do, same thing he did here, and it was effective then, and it's effective now.
He appeals to their ego, and he appeals to these people take the bait because the reality is most people don't like change. And he's talking about very radical change. Although, like Sister Stokes said, they're not coming in with bulldozers saying, you got to do this, you got to do this. He's simply preaching the gospel. And the gospel has drawing power So people are going after the way because of the drawing power that is in the gospel. But he uses that narrative to literally start confusion amongst the people. Because listen to the words that they say. They heard what he said and they got angry and said, "Great is Diana of Ephesus." Of Ephesia. Because their very way of life was being challenged.
I think that's why it's important to be quick to listen, slow to speak, and slow to wrath. Again, it just keep coming back to like present day, where you see a report on the news and you immediately like allow emotion to, allow the narrative to like carry you away. Instead of just keep your ears open and keep your eyes open and reserve emotion to later.
Or get all of the information.
Yeah.
Get all of the information. Who watched the debate last? Was it last Tuesday? It seems Deion still. Who watched the debate? Then, do you remember the debate where he talked about Springfield, Ohio, and people are eating the cats, right? So that starts an entire narrative on social media across America, and the people in Springfield are like, "What are y'all talking about?" Right? And then they show a video of someone in Canton, Ohio, who is literally high on some type of drug, and they asked her and it's a black woman, and they asked her if she had eaten the cat, and the people behind her are saying, "We seen her eat the cat," but then they put that and say that is literally what's happening in Springfield, Ohio, right? Now, she is not an immigrant, she was a natural-born citizen, but the narrative is now that the Haitians do what? Eat cats. And dogs. Don't forget about the dogs, right?
Family pets.
Yes. They are eating the pets. And it's simply because, they're delicious. But it's simply because someone got part of the information or got a half truth or a whole lie, and then they start running with that lie, and then the lie starts to take a form of its own, and then it becomes part of mainstream media, where it had been on the black web for almost 6 months. Same thing, but now it's in mainstream media because you have a candidate who is now talking about it. Same thing is what happens here. They get they get a half-truth, whole lie, and they run with it so that they can keep intact what? Their own word. And they don't want it to be challenged, and they begin to fight against it. And then it becomes what my 7th grade social studies teacher calls chose. And what is chose? Chaos. Because now there is confusion. And who is the author of confusion?
Satan.
The adversary. Not only that, they get more people involved. And when Paul would have entered unto the people, the disciples tell him not to. So that's my translation. How is your translation? The disciples, Paul wants to go talk to the people. So Paul, recognizing the issue, is like, let me clear it up.
Yeah.
And what his people say?
No, don't go out there.
Do not go to the
We are not letting you go out there.
Okay, they tell him no. Don't go out there. Certain of the, somebody read verse 31 in 9, King James Version. Verse 31, 13, 33.
And
even some of the Asiarchs who were friends of his sent to him and were urging him not to venture into the theater. Can you say keep reading?
Keep reading 33.
Now some cried out one thing, some another, for the assembly was in confusion, and most of them did not even know why they had come together.
Keep going.
Some of the crowd prompted Alexander, whom the Jews had put forward, but Alexander, motioning with his hand, wanted to make a defense to the crowd.
Keep going.
But when they recognized that he was a Jew, for about 2 hours they all cried with one voice, "Great is Artemis of the Ephesians."
Okay, let's stop there. We're gonna chunk this text together. So he got his folks like, bruh, stay in here. This is a mess, and we don't need you who are the chief evangelists going out and getting killed by this crowd, because these people are seeking blood because he stirred up a mess. They are if they're in so much confusion, guess what? They don't even know why they're there. I want you to know that the devil, when the devil gets in and the devil gets to messing stuff up, you'll be so confused you won't even know what's going on. And the people are like, I don't even know why I'm here now. Why are we here? Why are we here, Brother Turner? And then they're reminded, and here comes Alexander, verse number 34, and they drew out Alexander out of the multitude, this is what King James says, and the Jews putting him forward, and Alexander beckoned with the hand, and the people have made his defense unto the people. Why y'all think the Jews, this is interesting, right? Why y'all think the Jews are here amongst these people? They ain't worshiping Artemis. Why y'all think the Jews here?
They trying to hear Paul?
Nah, they ain't following Paul. Oh, they might be following Paul. They might be following Paul.
Yeah, these Jews is like.
Yeah, we know.
Yeah.
We don't want you to leave here anti-Semitic, though.
Yeah.
But yeah,
Well,
these Jews, they following Paul. But they following Paul to do what? We've seen them before. We've seen the Westboro Baptist Church crowd before, right? We've seen them at other people's. Do y'all know who Westboro Baptist Church is?
No.
Okay, so Westboro Baptist Church is a very conservative church in Kansas, and they follow all around America. They used to follow around military people, and they would go and picket at their funerals, right? And they would say that they're going to hell because they were fighting the war, all kinds of stuff. And that's who they are. So when I say the Westboro Baptist Church, we know these people because that's what they did. They went following around military people, literally stirring up confusion. That's why I said that. So they're stirring up confusion. They've done this before. These Jews have done this literally before. That's why Jason had to pay the fines. Because the Jews did what? What have the Jews done in the text? This is not anti-Semitic. Let me get that disclaimer. I'm literally going by the text. What did the Jews do before when they, I think it's in chapter maybe 15.
They part of stirring up the confusion.
They stir up the confusion. They have stirred up confusion before. And when they stirred up the confusion before, well, maybe it was in chapter 17. But when they stirred up confusion before, the same thing happened. And here we are, and it's happening again. And that's why the Jews are simply here to antagonize, to continue to egg on. But what happens, what does the text say happens in regards to the Jews? Bless you.
When they recognized that he was a Jew, for about 2 hours they all cried out with one voice, "Great is Artemis of the Ephesians."
So what did they do?
Got even more.
Hold on. What did you say, Sister Thompson?
I said they joined the rallying cry.
The Jews?
Well, that's what I thought it sounded like. Unless I'm misunderstanding. You did say join?
No. They're trying, so that they want Alexander to be able to explain. Right?
Right.
They want Alexander to explain. You be our mouthpiece, Alexander. You talk to the crowd and you rile them up more about why these people ain't no good. But what do the people of the city do?
They don't want to hear it.
The people of the city dismiss the Jews.
Okay, so that they is not the Jews, it's the people.
Right. the people of the city are like, we don't want to hear nothing you got to say either, because you're talking about a monotheistic God, the Lord our God, and we not even allowing y'all to. We don't want to hear nothing y'all got to say either. So what are they doing? They literally, the Jews who following literally Paul on his entire journey, following him trying to rile up, stir up mess, they get dismissed, and the people of the city simply continue to yell, what?
Great is Artemis.
Great is Artemis. They not trying to hear nothing nobody else has to say. And now who has to come in? Verse 35. Somebody read verse 35. Yes,
I have a question
Go ahead.
or a comment maybe. Wouldn't it also be maybe one of the motives of the Jews to essentially try to make sure that people are keeping them separate from the followers of the way? Because it started with the Jews, right? Paul is a Jew, Peter's a Jew, so it's converting Jews into followers of the way, but then these other Jews are like, they not like us, right? Kendrick Lamar. So we don't want nothing to do with them, right? Like, keep us separate from them. We will go along with, the regular course of the day. We're not trying to change anything. So while you all are rioting about them, it ain't us.
Yeah.
We're not the one.
Now in Acts chapter 17, you just mentioned, verse 5 says, but the Jews were believed not, moving in, they took to them certain new fellows of the baser sort, and gathered a company and set all the city of the uproar.
Yeah, they were in Thessalonica when they got to that big brouhaha before, and that's what Jay said. I think that's what Jay said. Yeah, because Jason is in verse number 6. And the Jews does a very fine job saying, no. They are a cult, people of the way. We pay our taxes. We are good, loyal subjects to not King Caesar, but to Caesar Augustus. No, we are not like them. They are different. They are turning the world upside down. So yes, they're doing a very good job in trying to stir up the pot, but distance themselves. But Jesus was a Jew, so they're like, the road was like, we about to get to that because that's what's gonna happen. Is they gonna get to an argument. Verse 35. Somebody read verse 35 through. Let's go through the rest of the chapter.
And when the town clerk had pleased the people, he said, ye men of Ephesus, what man is there that knoweth not how that the city of the Ephesians is a worshiper of the great goddess Diana, and of the image which fell down from Jupiter? Saying then that these things cannot be spoken against, ye ought to be quiet and to do nothing rashly. For we have brought hither these men, which are neither robbers of churches, nor yet blasphemers of our goddess. Wherefore, if Demetrius and Crampus, which are with him, have a matter against any man, the law is open, and there are deputies. Let them impede one another. But if ye inquire anything concerning other matters, it shall be determined in a lawful assembly. For we are in danger to be called in question. For this day is uproar. There being no cause whereby we may give an account of this concourse. And when he had thus spoken, he dismissed the assembly.
All right. Who shows up?
The town clerk.
The town clerk. The town clerk is we don't have them here, but in New Haven they have a town clerk. And the town clerk in times of old, and even in this text, even in the sacred text, the town clerk has great power and great authority.
Like the mayor?
Like the mayor, but New Haven has a mayor too, but they have a town clerk and a mayor, right? He has great authority, and there's always a man in the sacred text because of patriarchy, so we need to name that up front. So the town clerk has great power and great authority, and the town clerk wants to ensure that everything is done decent and
In order.
right. And how does he get the people to understand? One, he has power and authority, so they're going to respect him when he shows up, which is what happens. He shows up, and he speaks. It doesn't say that the crowd is still yelling. Diana of Ephesus, greater Diana of Ephesus. He tells them that we all know who we worship. We know how we worship, who we worship. Seeing that these things, they cannot be spoken against, you need to be quiet. You need to stop this now. Why? The town clerk is trying to keep what?
Peace.
He's trying to keep peace. Why? Because if he does not keep peace, who comes? They are in the Roman Empire. Roman soldiers are going to come and squash this. And they're going to be an occupied city. And he is trying to make sure you are not about to tear up our good stuff. Demetrius, you and your silversmiths, if y'all got something negative to say, you have ways to do it in the court of law. But if you do not, you all need to break up this crowd because you are in danger of what? What does it say? Verse number?
Of being charged with rioting.
Being charged with rioting. And if that is the case, and the Roman soldiers have to come, it's not going to look pretty. Because it's just like when you call the police. When you call the police, you're saying, I have trouble that I cannot handle. And the police have the authority to kill. And they have. And so does the Roman government. He tells them, these men, he actually speaks well of these men. What does he say? For you brought them hither, these men which are neither robbers of churches nor blasphemer of our gods. He puts to end that entire narrative. He stops it. He tells them, you got an issue, take it to the court. Because that's the only way you're going to be able to solve this without you all being charged with being rioters. And when he said this, he dismissed them. And when I say this, I dismiss you all. Let's take up the offering. God bless you all. This is Wednesday evening Bible study. We are glad that you have worshiped with us today and learned. We hope that you have learned something with us today. We are learning about the Acts, the first church, and we are growing in the Lord with this. If you would like to give to this ministry, you may do so. $ New Sardis PBC Church, Cash App, Zelle, or PayPal at New Sardis PBC7 at yahoo.com. You can give to this ministry.